Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to Temple's Planning Board meeting. I officially call this meeting to order. First order of business would be approval of draft minutes from December 17th.
Do you want to appoint Jim?
Oh, and to appoint Jim Medeiros as a voting member.
I have one thing on page 4, the Housing Opportunity Planning Grant. Just to clarify that the agreement that I shared was the one with SWRPC, not the one with Invest New Hampshire. It's separate. That was a separate contract.
I have one on page 1. All right, under number 2 of the public hearing, I misspoke and where it says, for example, junkyards are not allowed in the Mountain District, I should have said, and make it either a correction or a substitution, whatever is appropriate, in the Aquifer Protection Overlay District.
So it's in the Mountain District in the Aquifer.
No, so
Oh.
Mountain District is incorrect. They
No.
actually are
Oh,
allowed.
okay.
I thought that, but when I went back and checked our zoning, when reading this, they are not allowed in the operating functions of the district.
Okay. Should I write that as a,
Correction?
yeah.
Yeah.
That's better.
Okay.
That's
Yeah.
appropriate. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted the record to be more accurate.
Yeah.
What I.
Anybody else?
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Russ, how you vote? Carter?
Yes.
I vote yes.
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 Okay, minutes approved. Invitation for public comment. Any public comment? No. Okay, new business. Tonight we have with us Todd Horner and Sarah Bollinger from Southwest Regional Planning to talk to us about the housing opportunity grant that we were just granted, and I think to go over game plan and how we're gonna tackle this year. So I guess I'll give you the floor.
Sure, yeah. Hi, everyone. Again, Todd Warner, Southwest Region Planning Commission, my colleague Sarah Bollinger. Really excited to be working with the town on this project. I know that the town has already done quite a bit of work through the HOP program, so we're glad to be working with you on this phase of the work where the goal is to leverage all the public engagement and review of your existing regulations and craft some potential revisions to certain aspects of your zoning, and to help communicate with the public about what those revisions could entail, incorporating their feedback along the way. So our goal tonight is just to talk about a work plan that might give a little bit more detail as far as the sequencing and timing beyond what was submitted in the proposal. I'm assuming that everyone is up to speed on what was included in that proposal. So is there any need to recap that, or?
Everyone's familiar with the scope of work.
So we'll talk a little bit more about timeline, including the frequency of meetings related to the project, and some administrative logistics, as well as, if we have time, to talk a little bit more about your site plan regulations and where, what direction the planning board would like to take with potential revisions to your site plan regulations in the coming year. But we can start with timeline, and I think we have some drafts, but you've already distributed them. Great. So maybe I'll hand it over to you, Sarah, to start us start walking through this and just to be clear, this is a starting point for conversation, our first crack at laying out what a sequence of events could look like. And feel free to weigh in along the way, ask questions. This is intended to be a conversation. This is just a jumping off point.
Yeah, and so we took this from the scope of work that was agreed to and looking at all of the work that has been done in the previous phases. And there's a little bit of, I'm gonna say confusion on my part with that regarding how far you guys have gotten through your site plan review regulations and where you want us to pick up with that. And so we begin the schedule for the year discussing the site plan review regulations, which I guess I'm saying this in this manner right now because that might not be where you guys want to start based on where you're at in your draft revisions currently. For February, we'll be producing a memo summarizing the previous upward and our proposed approach to regulatory revision. It would be helpful if we could have a little bit of discussion tonight that could help inform that memo. So we better understand your direction. And then we will discuss the memo in February. So not a lot of work for us to do in February. In March, we'll review your draft site plan revisions and recommendations from Southwest that you can incorporate into your, I'm still saying draft revisions, because when are you guys planning to have the public hearing on your
We-
site plan review?
I think we haven't set a date for that yet. We have another version that we're gonna look at tonight.
Okay. And would you guys like to be holding off until you completed work with us to adopt your new site plan review regulations or have two adoptions this year?
We haven't discussed it, so, hard to say. I mean,
Food for thought.
okay.
So anticipating that you hadn't already adopted your new regs, we'll begin in March with reviewing Southwest recommendations, incorporating anything that is sort of still hanging out there from the prior recommendations from Ivy, Carroll, and Moosewood. Then we'll be developing a public events and engagement schedule and developing the list of municipal staff and committees for targeted engagement. Christine had said that we should probably be meeting with the road agent and the health officer. I don't know.
Probably the Conservation Commission,
Conservation
the
Commission.
GBA, I would think, too, the Select Board.
Yeah, so we'll firm up who that group of people is in
Mhm.
March and determine what type of materials we want to be sharing with them, as well as considering the public engagement schedule more broadly. You'll see that we've planned meetings for the fall, but that may not make sense with when you guys want to have this occur. So let's see, in April, we're hoping to finalize the site plan review revisions and revisit any unsuccessful zoning amendments from this March. Hopefully there are no unsuccessful zoning amendments from this March, but we're allowing for it within the timeline. And then if there needs to be further revisions to the site plan review regulations, we can take that away from the April meeting and bring final language to May at the public hearing for the site plan review regulations in May. And then we will begin working on the planned residential development ordinance. So we'll begin by reviewing what the goals are for any amendments to it, and then bring in recommendations from the previous consultant, as well as Southwest recommendations and, decision for it. We'll have the draft language for that ready for you in June, and we can discuss public events and outreach with municipal committees and staff. So hopefully that can occur in July. Or sooner, but so that any engagement with municipal staff or municipal volunteers can occur prior to bringing it into the broader public.
If it helps to know now, we typically only meet once in July and once in August. Just vacation time, so I don't know if that's gonna affect.
It
The way you-
shouldn't, we're anticipating, meeting with you folks monthly. It could be calibrated, you know, I mean, if we are able to participate in the meetings via Zoom, potentially participate in, you know, multiple planning board meetings a month based on what's on your schedule and how far we get each meeting. Do you guys typically have a full board at the two meetings that you have in July?
Yes.
Okay.
We have,
Yep. We've had a harder time in the winter months, I would say.
yeah.
Let's see, okay, so June we'll have the draft CRD language. And we'll start looking at promotional materials, including messaging and distribution, any mailers that will go out, flyers, etc. We won't have any for you to look at that meeting, but we'll discuss strategy. July, we'll start the overview of the previous workforce housing recommendations and public engagement work, the goals and desired outcomes for those changes. And we'll have the draft mailer and other promotional materials for you guys to review and provide feedback on. In August, we will review the draft language for the workforce housing revisions. We'll discuss the September public events. We're planning on 2 meetings, probably within the same week or potentially within the same week. Likely a weeknight meeting and a weekend meeting so that we can reach more of the population here. We'll discuss and incorporate feedback from the presentations to the municipal committees and staff. And we'll review promotional materials as revised. September, we will be sharing the draft versions of the PRD and workforce housing ordinances and gather feedback. And we'll discuss factors motivating the recommended provisions so that we can educate the public as to why it's being presented. And that will be the public event. So following that, at a planning board meeting, we'll discuss the outcomes of the public event. We'll determine if further revisions are needed based on feedback from the public, and then discuss any changes we'd like to make to the October event from how things were presented in September. So October, it will be almost a repeat of the public event unless we determine the calibration is necessary. And then we'll discuss the outcomes of the October event and amend the draft language as needed. We plan to finalize the language for both zoning amendments in November and revise public presentation slides as well. We are planning for the first public hearing on the zoning amendments in December with hard copy flyers and web-based materials with the layperson's descriptions of the proposed amendments. In January, we will revise language for the zoning ordinances as needed based on that first public hearing and have set aside a second public hearing if necessary. And we can consider revising the layperson's description as well as the amendment may also be revised. And then we'll have the final language prepared by the end of January to get on the town warrant. And then we will wrap it up in March for the debrief after town meeting. And it doesn't have the grant. I know that was kind of fast, but what do you think?
I didn't see any mention of open space, and I know it touches on all of these things, but that is in the scope of work. So do you anticipate looking at that specifically or just throughout the whole process?
It's not going to be specific. It's going to be throughout the whole process. You know, ways you can incorporate open space into the PRD, ways to incorporate open space for workforce housing. You know, considerations for, you know, impervious surface restrictions and that sort of thing within all of that as well as preserving open space. But if we call it out specifically as open space, I'm not sure that was included in, What
Within the
the-
context of the PRD,
It
it
worked.
was, yeah.
Yeah.
yeah, we keep it there, but if we
Okay.
talk about it separately, it's not within the scope of the grant, so we'll talk about it
Okay,
within the other plans.
okay. And then, the other question I had was about Housing Academy. I know that's something they really encourage, and I'll attend the session on Thursday that you attended, Todd, on Monday. Are you guys eligible for the Housing Academy, or is it just planning board members?
It's volunteer planning board members are eligible for the stipend.
Right, but,
For attending.
Mhm.
I think we'd have to evaluate whether it makes sense for us to attend those as well, but I would
Okay.
certainly encourage planning board members or other community members to attend.
yeah, I went to the first round way back when, so. But I know the schedule for Housing Academy hasn't been, great for people that work, which
Mhm.
is a lot of our board members, so
Yeah.
that's why I was wondering if that's something that you all could take advantage of if it makes sense. Unless others here want to try to attend, but I haven't looked at the calendar, but
Yeah,
the sessions were typically during the day or, during the week.
yeah, that's something we could talk about is if we're able to attend and report back to this group.
Yeah,
Yeah.
okay.
Some kind of higher level observations about the timeline. One is the engagement process that's articulated here. There's 3 public meetings that are referenced, and that comes straight from the proposal. And the number of public meetings was originally based on a more expansive work scope that included other zoning revisions. So since that scope has been narrowed to workforce housing and the PRD, as well as some site plan reg revisions, it's something we can consider along the way. Do we actually need 3 public meetings beyond the public hearings in order to help folks understand what's being proposed? I think it's something we can just kind of keep in the back of our mind along the way. And then just the sequencing of the public engagement, where we're starting with the planning board and then engaging with other municipal committees with some initial draft review and, helping them understand what the goals of the revisions entail. And then opening it up to a broader public conversation. So kind of concentric circles of engagement that expand over the course of the project. And the final observation is, we're proposing starting with site plan review, then the PRD, and then workforce housing as a way of just taking bite-sized chunks, but all 3 of those things relate to one another. So we might need to revisit some of those elements that we look at earlier on in the process, because I think and correct me if I'm wrong, I think one of perhaps the goals of looking at your site plan regs is to incorporate low impact development considerations in the event that workforce housing creates more flexibility for, say, multi-unit development in town, and making sure that type of development is balanced with conservation practices.
Mhm.
Do you all have any questions about the timeline?
Just a question for the board, just to catch me up. Probably one of the big influences of this is the land use plan that we're going to review tonight. But I notice we're only reviewing sections 1 and 2, which is current status, not section 3, which is our plans.
Right,
Is there a thought of trying to finish section 3 either as an input to this or as?
yes, that would be the next chapter that we would look at, is that, yeah.
Okay,
Yeah,
so-
and they have the same question.
Yeah, okay, so kind of between now and when this kicks
Yes.
off.
Yeah. So we need to finish up the land use plan chapter now, so we can look at the
Yeah,
implementation.
okay, all right,
and
so make sure I wasn't missing that.
Which is the goals
Yes, okay.
chapter, yes, for sure.
Does anybody else on the board have a question for Todd or Sarah? Yep. So how is this gonna work with the committees, municipal staff and committees? How is that process gonna?
Yeah, so I emailed Pam Kingston from the steering committee and asked her if she was able to come tonight. I didn't hear back. I also reached out to the Conservation Commission. I know that tomorrow night on their agenda, they're talking about the Moosewood regulatory audit. So that's something that we will work with them on whatever their goals are. I think as we attack each section, we'll look at who is most appropriate to come in and help us. Provide feedback sort of as we go, as we attack each section.
I think having some draft materials
To respond.
for folks to react to.
Yeah.
Not finished products, but our first cut and to get their input early on in the process could go a long way.
Mhm. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, I think so.
So if there aren't any other questions about the timeline, Christine and Sarah and I talked about this a little bit about meeting frequency and how, whether the planning board is able to carve out some time at its monthly meeting is dependent somewhat on what proposals come in the door. But assuming that you do have room on your agenda, does dedicating some time each month to this project at a planning board meeting, does that seem feasible to you all?
Yeah, I mean,
More feasible than adding another meeting.
Yeah, for sure.
It's good.
yeah.
Yeah, so we could say the first meeting every month or the second meeting, and then
I
just
think
be
having
flexible.
I think having a set schedule that we are at least blocking out on the calendar, and then if we have to change, then fine, but is one of the other first or second meeting of the month?
Well, with the time, like an hour, would an hour be what you would be thinking?
Yeah, I'd say.
Okay.
that would be good.
Okay, so that being said, I would say one meeting a month.
Yeah,
We try to typically meet for an hour and a half. Sometimes it runs into 2 hours and we're here at 9 o'clock, but we try to be an hour and a half. So if it's gonna be around an hour, I would say once a month. But
yeah, so
do you think we could get that job done in 1 hour a month?
That's what we were into, that's what we're,
Right.
yeah, I think that's a good target.
Okay.
Just one, do you think we're in a position to say your first meeting of the month and the second meeting of the month?
What do you guys,
One or the other?
anybody have any objections either way?
I don't think it matters, but we probably need some flexibility.
Right.
If we are swamped with other things.
Yeah, if we
right?
got any
Yeah.
applications, and then I don't know where the 4th of July falls.
But I don't think it matters which one. it is.
Yeah, it's a Friday this year, so the first meeting probably,
It's already the first meeting.
right,
First.
so the first meeting should be first Tuesday.
We'll reach out and confirm in advance to share. And just to give you a sense of how how we're envisioning this will work administratively is, so the town has a direct grant agreement with New Hampshire Housing for the project and an agreement with Southwest Region Planning for our role as a consultant. In other cases, we help communities that were playing a similar role with the reporting and invoicing. So one scenario is we draft a report and invoices for the town's review. And the town would then submit the invoice or the report to the funder. So hopefully it will take some administrative burden off the planning board or their designee with the reporting. But you'll still be the one transmitting the report to the funder.
Yeah, so how it worked the last time was Pam and I both wrote the report and we submitted it it had to go in every month first, I think, I can't remember what the deadline was, but it had to go in every month. And then I collected the invoices from our 2 consultants, and then I filled out the reimbursement request. I sent it to the HOP grant committee and they approved it. And then I sent, Peter Allen is our treasurer, so he was involved in the whole process too. I CC'd him on everything. And so they would then deposit the funds into an account. So we don't get the money up front. It only comes in when it's been invoiced and then goes out as it's been invoiced. So it's a little bit of a process and it doesn't always happen really quickly, which is why I'd asked for flexibility in the agreement, because it's not something we have control over, but we'll certainly submit as soon as it comes in. But yeah, I think it'd be great if you could, draft the report
Yes,
and then
yeah, yeah.
someone, one of us could review it and then submit it in. And I don't mind doing that, but if somebody else wants to do it, that's fine for me too.
Yeah, that's up to you all. We're happy to provide you a draft package and whoever is designated with the role of reviewing and submitting it.
Mhm.
It's fine. Great, and then the last thing that we wanted to talk with you about tonight is just getting a little bit more of a sense of the conversation so far about your site plan regulations, just looking at the timeline and how the site plan regs are one of the first items that we were going to help you tackle. Just getting a sense of where technical assistance would be beneficial. I know you already have some that are in process, and they've already been discussed to a certain degree. So just getting a recap of where you are with your current revisions and where you see priorities as far as any additional revisions to your regulations, and then we can take that into consideration as far as if it makes sense to batch this all together into one new adoption of your site plan regulations.
So I think, as I mentioned on the phone, one thing that came up with our last application is, slopes, steep slopes, setbacks, buffers, that kind of thing. There's not any formula or any direction in our site plan that tells us what's appropriate or not appropriate in certain circumstances. So that's one area that I think we'd be looking for some recommendations.
So you said slopes, setbacks.
Yeah, steep slopes, setbacks, and buffers.
Right, I think another area was around water and
Where
drainage,
wetlands,
wetlands
aquifers,
and drainage onto other properties, came up,
impervious surfaces.
impervious surfaces.
Yeah.
I'm not recalling off the top of my head, but like, I feel like when we went through the site plan, there
Yeah.
were some other areas that were like, probably needs attention, but we didn't get into it. Maybe those are just the few that we listed, but
Yeah.
Russ, do you remember, were there other?
Yeah, I just have a little notes here, stormwater, BMP, watershed, wetlands, buffers, it's all the same stuff.
Yeah,
And it's really all, I think, drainage and water. For the most part, maybe lighting.
Lighting's referenced as, in accordance with our.
with our dark skies.
Yeah,
That's
right.
Noise, I didn't see noise.
That's in the zoning.
Okay.
I noticed in the site plan regulation, there's a section that's for large
Mhm.
projects, right? Is that, I guess my first question is, why do you have that?
Pipeline,
What was that?
the pipeline.
The pipeline, okay. Was that proposed to come through Temple?
It
Yeah.
was,
Well,
Okay.
right on the town line, yeah.
yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay, and is that a section of your regulations you would be open to reviewing? The reason I say that is because my initial review of it, it's a little bit vague, but it looks like you could have a housing development that would fall under those regulations because it lists, developments over 3 acres, and I can't remember,
Right,
I can't remember everything that's listed in there, but it seemed like things that are not utility oriented could fall within those regulations, and it could be if you want those to really be exclusive for things like pipelines and large utility projects, maybe just amending those regulations to make it exclusive.
Yeah,
or commercial.
our intent when it was a knee-jerk reaction to obviously the pipeline in New Ipswich, we we can thank them they did most of the heavy lifting on that, and we basically just boilerplate, but it was, the intent was because of, a compressor station for a pipeliner. It wasn't really, the conversation wasn't about housing develops or developments or anything like that, so you're spot on to catch that we should
Okay.
probably.
If there's, okay, 'cause I don't wanna.
No, I think we're open
If you don't wanna.
open to
touch
hearing
it. Okay.
recommendations.
That's the large scale infrastructure that.
Yeah, section 13.
Yeah, and large scale is defined as 3 acres or more.
Yeah, you're right. It is very-
Which means it applied to our site plan review.
Yeah.
Well, except that when I know the acreage was just under 3 acres.
Oh, disturbance, you're right.
Disturbance.
Yeah.
Right.
You're right. Yeah, the lot size is bigger than the disturbance,
Right.
or would have applied in that case.
If they had done the whole thing at once, it would have applied, but it was 2 separate projects, so the new disturbance was under 3 acres.
Those are really just the definition of large scale, is that what it's like.
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, right,
All the
you're
other
saying
stuff seems to be. Associated.
that it could apply
Yeah, I
to
think
housing.
it is really just the large scale definition. At least if we're only looking at it for the housing use, but, you definitely could have a development that disturbs more than 3 acres, and then it would be subject to those regulations, and I am not saying whether or not that's perfect. I haven't looked at them with that in mind, because I kind of wanted to see where you guys were at before I spent time on that.
Yeah, I think the thinking would be more the commercial.
Like a Home Depot versus 5 lot subdivision.
Right.
Yeah, there was no talk or thought at all when we adopted that to affect any kind of home subdivision development. It wasn't ever brought up, ever talked about. It was specifically for the commercial end of things.
Well, that'll be an easy fix then.
Should be.
I think another just general on the site plan, I think talking to the Conservation Commission would be helpful
Mhm.
potentially, just because that came up in our last site plan review. And trying to work with them to make sure that we are preserving the natural places within Temple in an appropriate manner, and that our site plan supports that, I think was something that was talked about.
Mhm.
Were they able to participate in the draft that you're currently working on?
I don't think, no.
No.
No, we haven't done much
We
yet.
haven't done, it was like formatting, right?
Yeah,
Like,
it took
yeah,
just what we had, formatted it, maybe rearranged some things that went together.
we didn't
Okay.
make,
The only,
Comparison.
the only crossover I think is that, I mean, I also looked at the Moosewood recommendations, but again, we ran into that, boy, we could really use some technical assistance.
The natural resources.
Yeah.
Inventory. Camilla?
I highly recommend not giving farms a waiver, a site plan. It's specifically excluded.
Mm.
It doesn't make any sense. Farms need assistance and support. They do not need to do in the position of destroying their neighbor's land or environment or whatever. And I just think it's a perversion of site plans.
Well, I feel totally different about that. You forgot all about the burning torches and pitchforks from the last time the planning board tried to pass site plan review for ag? It wasn't too long ago.
Might be long enough ago.
Well,
We
I don't
haven't
know.
been so aware.
yeah,
consequences of climate change. And I think failing to have site plan review for farms, which are often, you know, consequences, the consequences of manure pile, storage, mowing, digging, trenching, etc. You know, let them off the hook.
And I guess if we're talking about steep slopes and drainage and all of that, the
Wetlands.
stormwater, wetlands,
But at
yeah.
the same time, you don't want to cows like wetlands. What are
Yeah.
you gonna say? Oh, you can't have, you need your wetlands and cows.
Yeah,
I will-
it's-
I will-
It's a hot button issue.
It's a real hot button issue, and you're gonna wake up some people in the grave. It's not gonna go well. And as chairman, I can tell you that I 100% don't support that. I don't see there's a problem with it. There hasn't been. And I, with all due respect, come on. But, you know, if the board overrules me and wants to move forward with site plan review for ag, they can go for it, but I think it's
You've heard a lot of discussion about keeping Temple rural. And everyone's like, we don't want housing, all this other stuff, we want to keep it rural. Well, then, if you go and make rules against farms, what else is there? Wilderness and nothing, right? Because, and farms are rural, farms are, you know, I can see maybe finding some way to control or non-point source pollution, like manure piles going in rivers, you know, some kind of buffer there. But I don't know about, you know,
Maybe Southwest could look at it from their broader point of view and experience. Because there are state rules about what farms can do. I think Fitch has had to drag their cows out of their wetlands and turn that back into a meadow. So I don't think it's inflicting too much on farmers to participate to a certain extent in the rules that benefit the entire town.
because if the state already has those rules, they override us anyways. Our zoning says that.
That's fine, but we can have rules, we can even strong rules, if you ever wanted to. But, I just think it should be examined, because I think putting in, you know, this does not apply to farms, it's like, huh?
I'm not sure it falls under the scope of work for
I
the
just
grant, but
said site plan
it's
review,
food
and I
for
just
thought.
think that it was fixing on that.
Mhm. Would you agree? I mean,
The grant is really intended to be focused on housing related issues, so
Yeah.
it'd be a bit of a stretch.
yeah. If it's a minor change, that's one thing, but something major.
We're happy to, if the planning board and the community wants us to take a look at it, where we can do that. But the focus of the work is really intended to be housing related.
Do you have experience with any kind of site plan regulations with agricultural? Is that-
Yes, not so much related to manure management and best management practices, but you know, agritourism certainly is a hot button issue in
Is it like
quite a few.
horses?
What's that?
What is that? Is that horses?
It means like some farms in order to make ends meet, they diversify their business model. You know, maybe they run a wedding venue on site, like in the blueberry field or in their orchard. And my other thought off the bat, I don't know what the history is in Temple on this particular issue, but there are some significant funding opportunities for farmers to improve their manure management facility. So it's more of a care, you know, making sure that growers and farmers in the area are aware of those funding opportunities. Could be a more incentive-based approach to making sure that water quality isn't negatively impacted.
Yeah, we have a lot of people that just have their own small farms on their property and not necessarily as a business, so it's.
Yeah, even smaller, you know, homestead operations, they're eligible for USDA support for a variety of conservation practices. So just making sure that they're aware of those opportunities could be a way to address these issues through a non-regulatory approach.
Okay, I think we should move forward off this topic of site plan review for ag, because we don't have it at the moment. And like you said, it's probably a stretch, so I think we should move forward to the next item on the the question.
Anything else on site plan?
It looks like there's an interesting opportunity where you've got in the site plan review, section 13 for large scale. I'm talking about applying that other. If that could be triggered by section 13 in our zoning, which is the industrial, commercial, non-commercial enterprise, it says these are allowed if the ZBA approves, and that triggers a site plan review. So one could look at if there's a ZBA approval of a industrial, commercial, non-commercial enterprise, that triggers the large scale infrastructure. It wouldn't capture houses, which I think is the intent, but there's an opportunity to link the two if you wish to do.
Mhm. Thanks.
They both have to be section 13 for some reason.
Yeah,
Yeah.
we also haven't redone the application for site plan yet. But it'll have to be synced up to the regulations once we have a final or more final version.
Is that something you want our help with?
I don't know, Russ. I mean, Russ has been doing the formatting for us, so.
I would certainly, I wouldn't mind doing just the first stab and look at it and give it to you guys and say, hey.
Yeah,
It's up to you.
yeah, I think we'll take a look at it and come up with a draft and pass it along. That makes sense?
I know, just the final version,
No, it's not.
I found something.
Yeah, we're gonna, I think that's later in the agenda.
Okay.
So I think we've got, I mean, you provided us with some direction as far as areas of the site plan regs where some technical assistance would be helpful. So really the goal of this meeting was just introduce ourselves, lay out the project timeline, get some initial feedback about direction on site plan regs, and then the following meetings will get more into the substance of all the issues that are in the schedule.
Right. And so, Sarah, were you able to access the Dropbox with?
Yes and no.
Okay.
Each agenda limits what you can access in the Dropbox, but I went back through several months and I was able to find the housing and population chapter as well as the land use chapter,
Okay.
well, the draft versions. So,
Can we just give Sarah access to are you guys okay with that? The HOP grant documents, so she can see all the whole folder, so the regulatory reviews and the steering committees, community engagement summaries and master plan chapters, and I think everything's in there.
That'd be great.
And we should probably add the latest version of the site plan once we
Yes.
have a later version. Thank you.
Okay, so are we in a position where we could set a date for the next time that we meet with you guys?
I think so. So the first report would be due February 10th, I think. Is that right? Okay,
February, yeah,
the first week of February.
I believe it's the 10th.
I think I have yes, February 10th.
And we meet on the 4th.
Great.
All right,
Thank you very much.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
thanks for coming in, guys.
Yeah,
Look forward to working with you.
yeah, great. Well.
Safe travels, Dr. Keen.
We just need safe travel to get across the street.
Yeah, right.
Unbelievable.
Okay, under new business, our second item tonight of discussion is building code. The attorney had emailed Christine last week with some information about
Printed.
building codes.
Building and fire codes.
Yeah.
It was a follow-up to conversations we'd had last year, and we added that section just saying that we adopted the state fire code and building code. And they seemed to think we needed more substance. And I don't know how you all felt, but when I looked at it, I said it's kind of late for us to be looking at something this substantial. That's my personal thought on it.
Especially like, we need a building code board of appeals. Do we have that?
No,
Okay.
well,
that's
it's the
what I was like,
select board is responsible for enforcement. They
Okay.
work with the building inspector. I mean, yeah, it was like a whole rewrite of the process, and
Yeah.
now wasn't the time to be discussing it.
Okay.
Was my thought.
I mean, it's definitely late in the game to try to propose something, so.
Yeah, that was our thought was, it just seemed, it was, wanted to hear the rest of the board's opinion, but Christine and myself, our gut instinct was right from the beginning was this, what's 11th hour?
From a timing point of
Yeah.
view.
Yeah, how are we
we
gonna,
have
you
to
can't,
Post it by Thursday.
Yeah.
And I'm not gonna spend my day tomorrow doing it.
yeah, yeah,
Even if we could agree to rewriting a whole
Yeah.
section of our zoning tonight, which is what would have had to have happened.
yeah, not to mention that's just really not fair to the townspeople to
No, to throw something like
like
that.
that at the
Yeah,
last second.
It was pretty significant
Yeah.
change.
Was there more discussion with the lawyer, like about, I mean, I know it was like, oh, due to recent. But was there any more context behind?
Not really. I asked, and I didn't print it out, but I did ask that
Yeah.
question, like,
Yeah.
can you give me some really good reason why
Yeah.
we should be doing this
Okay.
now? And I didn't really get a good answer back. It was just in response to last year. They-
Okay, then, yeah. I don't
It
think
wasn't
it's urgent.
It didn't seem urgent, no.
Okay.
Yeah, he references the same RSA.
Yep,
We reference, so we've adopted. It's essentially, number one, we've already have. If I interpret our.
right, right. Well, and they talked about a fee schedule, which I think has been on the select board agenda for a year or more, right?
Maybe
So-
two, maybe 2 years.
Maybe two, so I don't feel like the select board was ready to take it on either, so. I feel like we just wait for you guys to come to us when you're ready. That's,
I've learned a few things since then.
okay,
We don't need to adopt anything. We can just use the state RSAs, which say what we can find and when.
okay,
So there's no pressing time or timeline for that.
okay. Did you
Because we
see
do-
the email?
Huh?
Did you see the email with the whole process they wanted us to? Okay,
Concerned about this
We
one.
could share,
Yeah.
we could share, we
yeah,
can share
I'm
that.
sure,
We
yeah,
can forward it to you,
Sure.
so you can see what they sent us.
I'm
Yeah.
not very for it. We have a pretty good method set up to where we have it.
Yeah.
Really wild, so that building inspector.
Yeah.
He never charges us. Well, he does, but it's very minimal.
yeah.
Mhm.
So you're good with how it is now?
Yeah, I mean, from the things that I've learned recently, we can use the state RSAs. And the state RSAs say when we can find, what we can find, how much we can find, and when we can do it. So there's not really an issue there. I have not run this by the lawyers, but as far as I know, and you have a town that I'm with, that's what they do. And even though a building official can fine somebody, that doesn't mean the fines start that day. That means when you get to court, the judge can say, well, the fines start today, or they go back to when you were told you were gonna get fined, and then you can be fined. So, and then how much they are. So, and the state RSA is pretty clear on what you can charge, $250 a day, period.
For a violation.
can't, for a violation.
And what's talked about here is really the schedule of fees for a permit or an inspection. We do have.
We do have those, yeah.
elsewhere.
Mhm.
They're not here, but they're elsewhere. I don't think we charge for script, let's see the last 8 months.
Yeah, the only other thing I'd like to, look into is to make sure that if somebody does do something without a permit, that when they come in to do the permit's not gonna cost you twice as much, and I believe we already have that.
You do, yes.
Sounds like the consensus is we're all good on.
So
Not
it's
acting on
something, you know, after this season, take a look at this, compare it to what the rest of the rules are within the town. If we're covered, great, we're done. If there's gaps that aren't covered here, then that's, you know, topic of discussion perhaps. But yeah, not for this cycle of,
Yeah, but not for March, not for.
No.
Yeah.
I don't think we need a building code board of appeals. We have the ZBA.
Mhm. Yeah,
Just adding 5 more people.
yeah, and it says a ZBA can act.
can serve us, yeah.
Okay. Any news on the all-purpose storage? I know I saw the email about the checks came in or
No, the checks didn't come in,
Did-
so that was the initial check that they had given us. And I just had told Carol if she still has it to deposit it, but I have not heard anything. I don't know if anybody else has, but we should probably at least start with a phone call. Because was November 17th, I think, that we approved.
Yeah.
So the appeals period has passed.
so we need to call
So we-
Fieldstone?
Fieldstone and ask them if they're planning to submit their final documents and the check to pay us what they owe. I know they met with Randy, or they were planning to meet with Randy, I think the last
They
time we
didn't
spoke.
yet.
Okay, yeah, so those were the conditions, for finalizing the decision. So they can't move forward until they pay us and they submit their final Mylars.
Yeah, the Mylars, and right. Did we decide we're not don't have to register that for the
So,
registry?
so I did look into that a little bit. What I read is that if our regulations require it, then we do submit it, and there are benefits to submitting it. If there's ever any question in the future, if there's any changes made, there's an official record. We don't have to require it, but our site plan regulations, I believe, do say you have to submit for Hillsborough County Registry
At this
deeds.
point, I wouldn't. Especially for, because the registry, there's a plat law in New Hampshire. And the registry has all these regulations about size of your fonts.
Oh,
And line, like if you have letters over lines, they would have to, I would say, redraft the whole plan set
mm,
to make it meet the plat law. And maybe going forward, we say, hey, you have to meet the plat law with your site plans, but right now you'd be asking them to do the plans all over again.
And that's costly.
Yeah.
well, they haven't submitted their final ones yet,
Right,
but, yeah, we
From a
didn't tell
drafting
them.
Point of view, I know that's gonna take hours and hours and hours to
Yeah,
draft, and it has to be a certain size. Like, I think their plans were 24 by 36. And they have to be 22 by 34, so you're shrinking things down and trying to find new pages for things. I've had this happen, so.
yeah, well, I mean,
What have we done in the past? Have we submitted them?
I don't know that I've done a site plan review.
Registries don't like site plans.
Yeah, we've only done a handful in town over the years, and
But we did Ben's and I don't think that was,
we
Filed.
didn't file his, yeah. I'd have to ask, somebody like Alan Pickman probably would recall whether or not that was a
What that
common.
does is it puts the onus on the town to maintain those records,
The Mylars, yeah.
the Mylars, essentially forever.
Yeah.
Because if there's a violation of the site plan review, you've got to go back to those Mylars or the registry, one of the two.
right,
So it puts it puts the importance of a, permanent, it's never going to burn down place to store things if we're not going to use the registry as that service.
Hmm.
Well, we should start with a phone call to them in any case and
Yeah.
ask them
Yeah,
what's
see
going
what-
on. Let's start with that.
Yeah.
Of course, there's also electronic filing. We all have electronic.
Yeah.
Yeah, we do.
Stuff is backed up
Today's
electronically.
That's
world,
true,
yeah.
okay, yeah, you're
Yeah.
right. I was going old school for a minute.
I'll take on that task to get a hold of Fieldstone.
Great.
Yeah, as long as we have a record, and we're maintaining them electronically, probably, we should.
GIS mapping conversion, where we, in line for a warrant article.
That would be Russ.
I think So, yeah.
Yep, we're all, you're working with the selectmen to get that all.
I think Gail's already given up the CIP, given the.
I think they're meeting.
We have a meeting tomorrow.
Okay.
So VIP is at 6 and then budget is at 7 and that will be included in.
The HOP grant, obviously, we
We
just
talked
had our
about-
guests there, end of year report. I know Christine worked something up.
I did. It wasn't
17.
really a polished version.
Yeah.
But it was to get you started.
Yep, so I guess we have, till the end of next week to get that finished up. I kind of looked at what you did last year
Yeah,
and then looked at your rough draft here, so I guess we, you know. So what happened with Pickman Downs? They was a
it carried
carryover?
over.
Okay, so.
Yeah,
Um. But anyway, we'll work on that.
I think it carried over because there was a question about the septic, right? So I looked at the minutes from our meetings from the year. And in January, we talked about the neighbor had, you went over, Russ, the wetlands. Yeah. So that's why it carried
Carried
over.
over to the calendar year
Yeah.
2024. The proposed zoning amendments, you sent out
I
the
did.
updated final,
Potentially.
potentially final.
So the only thing that changed, as I noted in the email, is I added that sentence under 17.30. Due regard shall be given to the preservation and protection of existing historical features as determined by the planning board during site plan review. And that language just came from similar note in our subdivision regs, which talks about preserving natural and historical features on the property. And I removed the first one, obviously, as we voted from the last meeting and gave them numbers and reformatted, reordered so that the resident version was together.
I have a minor suggestion on amendment number 2.
Okay,
So, in the intent section, 330, the intent is to allow homeowners generating income, elderly individuals up to caretakers and renters serve the home, and provide affordable housing.
mhm.
I don't know that we can have, I don't know that the regulation can provide affordable housing. It can certainly provide more opportunities for affordable housing. Because we could do this and have multiple dwellings that get created and rented at not affordable rates. That's outside of our control. It does provide the homeowner the opportunity to create it at a lower cost because we're taking some burden of regulation out of their off of the path they have to follow. So I thought was just
Possibly.
putting in to provide more opportunities for. Or enhanced opportunities for versus kind of committing that, hey, this is going to create affordable housing, which
Right,
Right,
we don't
no,
know.
yeah.
we don't know. Yeah,
Right.
Mhm.
that's up to
Mhm.
the owner of that property.
Or could it say, and to possibly provide affordable housing in Temple?
Yeah.
Just add the word possibly,
Or ease the burden up.
Mhm.
That's essentially what this is doing.
just insert that
Yeah.
language.
Someone can do this today through the ZBA and I believe through the ZBA and other exception processes. We're just making it easier that you can go through a streamlined site plan review and building.
Mhm.
And provide opportunity.
I think
Okay.
opportunity.
Provide opportunity.
Provide opportunity.
There we go.
Yeah. Yeah, opportunity for,
I don't think that changes
I
the
think it changes the intent.
substance.
It just
I agree.
clarifies, hey, there's there's a limit to what we can do, but we're doing what we can, and
Yeah.
it's now up to the next step, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
Why are we underlining those
because
things?
that was a change. It used to say and provide affordable housing, and nowhere added the word
Got
to.
it.
To provide, okay,
So
Yeah,
anything is under.
yeah, yeah.
so provide opportunity for, or.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that in the workforce housing RSA, we're required to provide opportunity for affordable housing, and that, I don't know if that's why this was put in here originally when it was written, but that could be to comply with the RSA, that it was written that way, like, you know, because we are required to provide opportunities for affordable housing. So I don't think putting the word opportunity in is gonna make that
Change
change,
it.
but I
Okay.
suspect that's probably why it was written that
Yeah,
way,
okay.
just to comply with the RSA.
Yeah, and we also have the affordable housing section in zoning that applies to.
Oh, the workforce housing.
Workforce, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
workforce housing.
Yeah.
But you're right, so, okay, I see why, yeah, you wanna address it. You don't want to admit it, in other words, don't start the whole thing, because it is, the whole guidance around doing this. was
Right.
an Attempt to.
Right.
Get there, it's just, we can't guarantee it, we can make
Right.
it easier.
Right.
Anybody else have any questions on the, what is it, six ballot questions?
And I don't know if I think this is a substantive change, which would require another hearing if we include this sentence, due regard shall be given to the preservation and protection of existing historical features. Read.
It's,
It is in our site plan review,
yeah,
so it would come up during site plan review.
you could say that, as determined.
I think, you know, I'm trying to respond to the concerns that were raised at the hearing, so that's why I feel like it might be important to include that.
I don't know.
I don't know that it,
I don't think that that's,
you don't think it's a substantive change?
Because you're basically expanding upon not alter the character and appearance.
Yeah,
what do you think? Kurt?
I would agree with Murray. I don't think it's not like we're adding a whole new condition.
It's not a
here.
requirement, it's
not a
just saying, hey, we're
requirement.
gonna look at this when you come to us, so
Yeah,
do your best to not change any significant or extraordinary features.
I think that's fair.
So then it feels like we don't have to do another hearing.
I don't think we do. I haven't heard anything from anybody, pushback or otherwise, after the first hearing.
Mhm.
That tells me, and I haven't heard anything around town, so that tells me that we'd be pretty lonely at that hearing, possibly.
Okay,
I think we did our job. People know it. The only one that was in question was the permissive issue, and we decided not to do that.
Yeah.
Everything else we've done, people have had plenty of time to. They've known we've been working on it for years, but in particular the last year with the the HOP grant and the committees, and we're gonna put forward the questions to the voters, what we feel was the wishes of the town. And they're pretty straightforward, I
and
think.
these are all separate articles.
yes, yep. So then I can submit these as written.
Do we want to
and-
vote?
Sure, we should
Yeah, I think we should.
Somebody want to make a motion to,
make the motion to submit the proposed zoning amendments with that one or two changes.
two amendments?
Second.
Russ, how do you vote?
Yes.
yes.
Sorry, I vote yes.
Yes,
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Great.
Good.
I would like one follow-up to the old, article one, which is the missing piece. I did get a chance to go through, the submitted comments from Jim Kingston, who presented. I have some corrections for him that I haven't had a chance to get back in yet. An example of being, he states that last year, we clearly stated we are not in favor of the government of adding government power and oversight when we actually were tied 3-3. When I go back to the notes, and we decided to table it, not kill it, but table it, do research, look at other towns. We looked at the other towns, they were significantly more complex in the things we saw. So it felt like, one simple statement made sense. But I'd ask the board, hey, we should probably keep this in the back of our mind as we continue to learn more about the wishes of the town and permissive versus non-permissive, prohibitive zoning. Especially given that the zoning amendments that are going forward are written in the permissive fashion. You are permitted X if you do the following. Is exactly how we've written them going forward. So.
Yeah, and I don't know, I'd like to hear more from Steve Anderson, because what his examples he was giving were all what sounded to me more like concerns about the special exception process rather than the zoning ordinance. So I think that was something, that was a really good point that we should, maybe look at that a little differently.
Sure.
And see if that addresses some of the concerns that he had. That was just my thought after thinking about it.
There was another concern, I think maybe it was in Jim's letter. Well, and he was giving examples, like what if the state said, from now on, there's no agriculture? And I think our zoning says, whatever the most restrictive law is, that's what we follow.
Right.
So we do it anyway.
And if the state changes, we have no choice. We have to follow what the state does.
Yeah, and I went back and looked, so we have occasionally reference state definitions. And we do that in 4 places when I looked over the weekend, and farms are one of those. We might want to, at some point in the future, look at what the state considers a farm and choose to agree or choose to do something different. We'd also do it for, planned residential units and elderly housing and those things which are highly state regulated, plus junkyards, which are highly state regulated. So that kind of makes sense to me, but the farming one might be one we're going to look at sometime in the future. When I was reading that and looking at it, I said, that's probably, that in the back of my mind is something just to look into. But I would be concerned about doing the whole rewrite of the zoning that's been been developed over the past 50-ish years.
Right.
Right. And but look at it on a case by case basis as we get to it.
Okay, so everybody's good with the zoning amendments. We'll see how that goes in March, and you'll take care of that with the.
I submit it to the town clerk, I believe.
Yeah.
I'll make sure that's the process, but I believe I submit it to her.
And do you have is there a review?
Well, it's gone through
Okay.
legal review already, but I think, I don't think it goes to DRA because it's not there's no money tied to it.
And then you'll get back before it goes to the printer, you'll get back a copy. So just to make sure that there's no errors and it's printed the way we intended it to be, okay.
Yeah, and so last year I also, I printed the warrant articles as they'd be written for someone going into the booth, and then I had another document which explained a little bit more of the reasoning behind.
Yeah.
Sounds
So
good.
I can draft something like that again
Thank you.
before the next meeting.
Yeah, that was really helpful, I think, for a lot of voters.
So they know what they're voting for or against.
All right, well, 10 minutes past 8, I think we hopefully we'll have time to do both the site plan review and the work session.
We will.
And the land use plan. So I guess,
I'm tired of bringing the land use thing and
Yeah.
not getting it done.
I know.
So let's just get it done.
So what's site plan review first?
Yeah,
Um,
thank you, Russ, for the latest version.
Yeah, I'll look over. I didn't reprint, so I'll sit over your shoulder.
We had all the stuff that we had talked
Start
about.
charging
I
you for
did because
printer
I know,
stuff.
a lot of stuff that I couldn't read,
Yeah.
so thank you.
My ink toner was low on yellow and red or whatever it was tonight.
Do you want to just go page by page? It's easiest for you, Russ?
Yeah, sure, yeah, I'll just go down whenever you tell me there's like things we're changing, errors.
So on section 3, procedures.
Yeah.
Let's see, that's I think you copied and pasted from the other. Yeah, so it references the subdivision plat on the second to last line. The data may be tentative, but shall be sufficiently clear, under number 2. Section 3, procedures, letter A, preliminary conceptual design, number 2.
Yeah.
The second sentence, the data may be tentative, but shall be sufficiently clear to illustrate site conditions and establish the basis and clarify the design requirements for the subdivision plat. And then the next line says, and shall show the following information. So I think this is just a formatting thing. Shouldn't number 3 and 4 be like an A, B?
Indented, yeah.
Yep. Anybody else have anything on that page? On page 3, and I highlighted the design review phase may be waived with a written waiver, but I don't know why I highlighted it. Oh, I know, because are we waiving design review for a site plan? I know we do it for minor subdivisions. And, if there's something that's a subdivision that's straightforward, but I don't know that we waive for site plan.
I don't know, I mean, I just cut and pasted from.
If it's a commercial, I mean, we could always say no if we want to leave the option, but I feel like that is not something that we would typically waive,
Yeah, I
right?
don't think so.
Which letter is that?
F,
Should have taken that out.
yeah.
Yeah.
And then you have a couple other subdivider references
Search something.
under C, final application, number 1 and number 5. Anybody else can jump in if you have anything else.
What page are you on?
I'm on page 4. And then I highlighted this letter G on the filing with the Registry of Deeds.
Yeah.
I don't know, question mark, yeah, are we gonna do that or not?
I mean, it sounds like we're not doing it. We haven't done it.
Yeah,
I think we'd have to expand on that at least to say,
maybe,
plans may
be recorded.
be recorded and must be, by
On
the
the
plat law, in New Hampshire, must,
Follow the requirements.
yeah.
Yep,
Russ, I'm guessing if you did that from the start, it would be not a whole lot of extra work.
No, from the start, it's easy because you just know, I only go, 0.8 is the smallest text I can use. You can't use little tiny text. And you make sure that there's no text over lines.
Yeah.
Page size, right? So if you do it at the start, like, it's just part of what you always do.
right.
So do we say we keep that, or what do you want me to do with G?
I guess what is the benefit of us recording it with the registry of deeds? Just that we don't have to.
If there's ever a
Keep the
question
copies,
in the
right?
future, that's the legal,
The legal.
Yeah.
So I think the towns.
the towns must be an official.
Repositories are official too. And,
Yeah,
think of the recording fees too, where a subdivision might be 1 or 2 pages, maybe 3. A site plan can be 50 pages.
right, right.
Sure.
It's a lot of,
Yeah, it does make it accessible to the public though.
it does, it's easy to look up.
Yeah, I popped up a site plan for another place in town and I found it with,
Yeah.
because it was referenced in all the deeds, and the deeds point right to the site plan and, 2 clicks later, I've got it up on the screen.
Right.
So now we just say expand on the requirement. right, like, make sure they're doing it in accordance with whatever the
Yeah.
registry needs.
Okay.
So you're leaving that in.
I don't mind saying may be recorded.
Maybe.
Yeah, that's okay, we'll get some guidance.
Yeah, right,
Continue to get some guidance on it, but I think,
right.
in accordance, have it be compliant with.
Yeah.
Whatever reporting standard makes sense.
And then you have subdivision in the next letter H, subdivision
Yep.
regulations. On page 5, submission requirements. Letter A, number 3. I didn't know if that north arrow and date seems like it's just hanging out there. Should it be its own number, or is it?
I don't know, I didn't know what to do. It's like a whole number just to say north arrow, but they're all.
I don't know if there's a way to say it that,
North arrow?
yeah, it makes like a sentence.
The plan shall include the scale and north arrow.
What date is included? The date of creation, or what is the date?
Preparation date usually.
Okay, let's specify. And on page 6, section 5, letter A, there's a subdivision. And then down on letter N, it says New Hampshire Department of Public Works and Highways. I think that's the Department of Transportation. Don't they issue the permits for driveways on the state road?
Right above that, M, which references section 30 of the zoning ordinance.
Yeah.
But we can now, according to our zoning, change the numbers at will. So we might want to actually write up the title of the section.
Yep,
Which
with the dark
is
skies.
Dark sky
Okay.
zoning requirements. That way, if section 30 becomes 29 someday.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, that's a good point.
You're not pointing to the wrong place. It's reasonably obvious where you're pointing to.
Yeah.
On page 7, section 8, enforcement, just select board is one word. I should be 2.
2 words?
Yeah. I think that's all I had. Other than, the application needs to be updated. Did you want?
So now what, yes, please. Yep. So what is, when we work with Southwest, one of their things, through the grant is to review our site plan review.
Mhm.
What is, I guess I'm trying to understand why we're going through this
Can I see this again?
process when we're gonna have them, we're paying them to go through this. It seems like they could be correcting things that we've already.
Well, we're asking them to look at some specific areas, right? So not necessarily,
Not necessarily the
The nuts and
housekeeping and.
bolts. Yeah.
Okay, that we've been doing here.
Yeah.
Okay. They're gonna look at the slopes and the,
setbacks.
Setbacks and the buffers.
Water, anything related to
Suggested
storm
additions.
management.
right,
Yeah,
so it'll just be additions to what we.
And then we're gonna do something with this large section 13, right?
yes, but it sounded like she thought it would just be a minor change, but
But the large scale.
the large scale.
Yeah,
to-
that was a good catch.
Yeah, it was
on
a
her
good
part.
catch.
Yep.
Did you have other stuff, George?
I had a thing on page 11, number 8. All construction roadways will be completely removed from the project within town borders at the completion of the installation phase and final restoration. Restoration of the areas disturbed by the question mark.
Under number 21, which one did you say?
Number 8 on page 11.
There is no number 8.
We're looking at large scale.
Yes.
Oh, let's go, so.
Construction
In
roadways.
Oh, I see what you're saying, number 8, yeah, but just a different page number.
Yeah, our printing must be different.
That's right, page number 7.
This one.
Town board. Oh, I see, 8 and 9 should be one. No, something's missing. Restoration of the areas disturbed by the construction. Construction roadway will be restored.
Disturbed by the construction.
Construction roadways.
So construction roadway will be restored to town engineers' satisfaction. So what, that's just like what, like work roads until the project's over?
Temporary.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very tough.
So I did erase number 9 and pop that out.
Yeah, make it all clear.
That was okay.
Yeah, the old version is still on the town's website if you wanna
Yeah.
compare it.
I was looking at that.
On page 13. On restoration phase. 1-3. It says the project owner will agree to this provision in contract with the town. Failure to do so will result in the project to be non-committable, and non-constructible.
Oh.
Reimbursement.
It's really non-permittable.
Totally non. Okay, yeah.
Anybody else?
You can pick that one.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Did I write any notes in there?
You did though, yes.
That's okay. I don't need that.
All right.
So is Russ, so Russ was, he's making edits, right?
Yes.
That's immediate decision.
Yeah. Okay.
And then as far as the application,
I haven't seen yet. I haven't messed with the application.
okay, well, it's just, matching it to the subdivision format.
Yep.
And I think we had the owner name maybe in the map and lot at the top, just because it makes it easier to find.
Okay.
When it's being filed, right?
So CRPA then will have SWRPC, they will work with this version that Russ has.
Yeah.
And then we'll just continue to make changes before we.
I think that's what we said earlier.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that makes more sense.
The only other change on the application is on the fee schedule where we said, right now we charge $10 per a butter, but I think we just say whatever the current
Do
mailing
it like the
postage,
subdivision.
yeah,
Okay.
because it changes all the time.
That doesn't have a checklist now, does it? Or does it?
It does,
Not the same thing. Okay.
yeah. It may be the same as what was in the subdivision one, but I didn't compare. You want,
I can.
it's fine.
Been a while since I looked at the one on the active ones on the website. Is this mostly formatting changes or is there substantial?
I think it's mostly formatting.
This thing, yeah.
Just goes back to the question of, is there urgency of publishing this, of getting this active
Right,
and then have it reviewed and maybe tweaked?
right.
Or is there not enough change that warrants it and just have them go do their thing before we bring it to?
I think we've made
The only-
substantial changes
I don't
to
know
it,
either.
have it matter at this point.
To have a hearing.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, changing, adding a letter, or instead of saying section, it's
Mhm.
A, little number 1, that.
Yeah.
We haven't really made changes to like the conditions,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. Certainly when After Southwest is done with our request for the
Right.
slopes, and
Right.
Yeah.
there's gonna be obviously hearings for that.
Mhm.
But that's not a booth, it's not a voting, in the
No,
booth, that's our board,
That's
yeah,
us, yeah.
Public hearing in our-
Yeah.
yeah,
I'm hoping it'll be before March personally, but we'll see what they come back with.
yeah. Okay,
Land use plan.
here we go, land use
I
plan.
think Carter had sent me some stuff a while ago. But I don't know if anybody else. I mean, this is
Agenda for.
probably the third or maybe fourth time that Carter's seen it, because being on this hearing. Right.
So we should be saying it's good,
Yeah.
because we've already done it.
No, but then you kind of take those.
Yeah, I found a couple, but. One is on page 3, the large scale. Is one word and it should be.
Yeah.
That's
That's
that one. Yep. And then there's dispersed is spelled incorrectly. That was another one I think you thought, Carter.
Yeah.
Necessary and necessarily. That's on page 9. I'm sorry, I'm just going through the ones Carter sent me.
Yep. Or everyone on page 7, if you.
Okay,
In the middle of the page, it talks about commercial and industrial activity in the temple is sparse.
Yep.
With a few uses located on the temple sharing line. I'm not aware of any commercial and industrial activity on the temple sharing.
Is it
If you look
same
at-
on Temple Mountain though, or what's the thing on top of Temple Mountain?
Oh, cell tower.
Is that
Cell
what-
tower.
Is that what it was? Cause I wonder if you're just looking at a map.
My house, maybe it's mine. Mine's yours. It's my place they're talking about.
I went back and looked at the map.
Yeah.
Which is on the previous page, and pink would be on my color, pink would be commercial industrial, and then that thing labeled pink.
Oh, okay.
The end of West Road.
Right.
The pink stuff is, it's along Route 101. It's Boo's Farm and across the street, and then it's near Memorial Highway. At least as they've documented the commercial industrial.
right.
Use.
Yep, no, that's a good catch.
So we could say
We could just remove that. It really doesn't matter.
a few uses located along State Route 101, General Miller Highway, and Webster Highway.
Yeah.
Just correct.
Well, it does say in the next line, retail use at the intersection of Route 101 and Webster Highway.
And new, they reference the new Maple.
Yeah.
Cross.
Yeah.
And the cell tower is not marked on here, so.
Commercial.
It must be small enough, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, so the
I-
little pink dot. To the right of the large green square.
Yes,
is
yeah.
that tower. It's small. Relative to the rest of it.
Mhm. Commercial industrial on Memorial Drive in General Miller, is that the Lucas Foundation?
Page you.
I think so.
6?
I think so, because we looked at this
Yeah.
map before
We
in the
did.
HOP grant committee, and I think we had a whole discussion about what,
Yeah.
Yep,
I think
Yeah.
you're right, yeah. Originally, I thought it was the large
can't even read that.
garage area,
My mind
but I
behind
think
that.
they're for the whole-
You see Wheelands, you see Ben's, you see our marble granite, you see the storage unit.
Yep.
You see Temple Cabins.
Yeah.
Yep, Temple Cabins right by Sarah Drive's, yep. And Booze.
Okay. Anything else?
And when I went through it and I looked, I went online, which is this copy.
Mhm.
And then I'm trying to compare and, a lot of it is the same, obviously, but I think, that for the most part, you know, they did a really good job updating it to
A lot of data updates.
the data, yeah,
Yep.
yeah, and a lot more, yeah, all the maps and,
Right,
but I didn't really look for clerical, you know, a comma here or a capital there. That wasn't really what
The
I
one,
was doing, but some
so
of you were
one-
better at catching that
Yeah,
stuff than I am.
We're at the very end, the last page. It almost feels like the last paragraph, the approach for implementing. Is really meant to be a new section, it's not really the conservation and preservation section.
yeah,
What do you want, implement?
the last paragraph references.
Very
it.
last paragraph is out of place, so
Yep.
it falls under conservation and preservation, but it's really introducing the next section.
Mhm. Yep.
So it almost like seems a section header there.
Yep.
And then back two pages under future land use. The last bullet, which talks to residents will continue to place a high value and importance of natural resources. I propose we consider adding in there, because it's come up, especially with some of the town park and accesses, that, you know, residents will also place high value on access to land for passive recreation. Public and private land for passive recreation, so creating that corridor that connected through 45 into some of the conservation that happened recently. And that kind of aligns with our master plan vision statement.
Mhm.
While we're looking at that, I just noticed that the first 4 bullets there maybe should be capitalized.
Hmm.
There's an idea.
Yeah, good
No
catch,
period on the last one.
good catch.
Yeah. So the last one could read, you know, residents continue to place high values and importance in natural, of the town's natural resources and access to, you know, public and private land for passive recreation. Is the proposal.
Yep. So I say I have access to land for passive recreation,
I put in there public and private land.
access to public and private land.
Yeah, we're on those.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Yeah, no, I think,
Waited this long to do that.
I know, that's what I kept telling Bruce, like, we should keep postponing it. I don't think it's gonna take that long.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
The next one will take longer, the implementation chapter.
what's your thought there on how to get through it? It's gonna try to drive.
I've gotta look at it again, to be honest, before I can figure it out. If you have a suggestion, I'd like to hear it.
Yes, what we have is the old one, which is. 2003,
Right.
They could be status.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially, and did the board in the past 21 years actually accomplish was the objective thing?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, I haven't looked. But then, you know, it's sort of like it sort of feels like a free form or a collective thought on what this board kind of thinks the objectives are going forward.
Yep, based on the data that we collected. Mhm.
That's the hard.
That is the harder part. Well, I mean, we can all look at it before the next meeting and I don't expect that we'll get through it all at the next meeting. It will take some time, but we gotta start somewhere. So that's our next work session.
Okay.
Okay. What's next?
Just miscellaneous. There's like 900 and something new bills for legislative update. I get emails weekly if there's anything that's going through the process, but it's still really early.
Yeah.
And just if anybody's curious, you can sign up to get updates on the land use bills through fastdemocracy.com, and they'll send you any, whatever the latest status is on any bills, and you can pick which ones you want to follow. There's a lot, which they'll be condensed, and some of them will probably drop off, but that's where information comes from, and then NHMA will send out emails if there's any that they want you to sort of be aware of. Lots of ways to get the information.
Was it next Thursday that class 6 roads?
Yes, I think that's on the agenda, right? Yep,
Yes, it is.
it's the second bullet.
Yeah.
Yep, and the recording will be available on YouTube, so if you can't attend at the time, you can watch it later.
Yeah, I registered, but I can't attend.
Yeah, well, you'll get a link to it anyway. Yep. And I signed up for it as well, and I signed up for the UNH one. And I signed up for the solar energy one, which may be more of a time commitment. Because I think it's every couple of weeks, but I don't know if anybody from Concom or,
It's on our agenda.
great. Or we have a renewable energy committee as well in town, right? That's Rob Wills. They may also be interested.
Yeah, maybe they. might be
Hopefully we can,
able to attend and then-
if we can't like all attend all of them,
Right.
maybe we can piece them together. On the tax map updates, Russ had we got an email from CAI from the ones that were done last year. And I think they just have a new person responsible for Temple and didn't know that we finished it last year, but I did call Carol in the office and we have all the latest versions and they seem to think we didn't, but we do. It was just a date, the date was incorrect. I don't have anything else on the others. And we kept that number 4 zoning amendment, section 13A, for determining buffers, but I feel like it's on the to-do list now, so maybe we don't need to have it on the agenda.
Take it off the agenda. Yeah. All right.
Driveway update, Murray,
I did not get to them this weekend.
it was in the annual report from last year that we'd wrap it up in 2024.
I will, I'll take a look at it. I mean, we basically have to do the full review. We'll have clarity what are. What's in the, what's baked in the things that. Probably inform the change.
Okay.
I'll try to have that.
Great,
All right, so I'm gonna call Fieldstone
yes.
and find out where the money is and plans.
Yep.
Okay. Good.
I will,
Did you want to, when we talked, did you want to mention
Oh.
about,
yes. So I had asked Kathy, if she wanted to do an annual review. We did one last year at the end of the year, and I didn't know if, Kathy seemed okay with it, but if you wanted to.
I'm happy either way. I'm happy to be formal, I'm happy to be informal, it doesn't matter to me. I always want your feedback, positive or negative. So please, I'm here to do what you need me to do, so tell me. If you want something different, just let me know. So.
Well, I appreciate everything you do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You do a wonderful
Right.
job.
Yeah, detailed meeting notes,
Yeah,
the Dropbox now.
oh, yeah,
becomes
so nice.
So much easier to find things.
Having known the pain of taking minutes from being on the hop.
Oh, yeah. It's painful.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy.
I mean, I appreciate what you all do for the town, that you put in a lot of time.
And
Appreciate you doing that.
Kathy did say if she felt like she had time available, she would be willing to take on more tasks if we have anything we want to hand off. And I don't have anything specific in mind, but
And it doesn't have to be right now either. It can be just as, you know, as you go on, if things pop up that just are too much of an ask. Yes.
thank you. Are you finding that you're spending less time on minutes and things?
Yeah,
It's
I didn't
easier?
have to, I know more, so I don't have to go on, you know, on the web and search, what the heck is this?
Right, the acronyms and things, yeah, right. That's great.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So signups will be coming up before you know it for reelection, and I talked to Brian, he is not gonna run, obviously.
Isn't it you and Murray this round?
Yes, Brian.
Brian and Brian and Murray,
Oh,
okay, yeah, so
okay.
Brian's not running,
Okay,
so that would be whoever, Jim or whoever wants to,
we'll have a vacancy.
yep.
I don't know, haven't heard of anybody else running.
Who would wanna jump in and join all the fun we do?
People that don't know.
Yeah, the only thing with you, to be on a ZBA and be a
Full member,
full
yeah.
member, you might have to, I don't know. that
You
could-
might have to choose one or the other.
Yeah,
I wasn't planning on staying on both.
yeah,
Okay, yeah, there is a bill being proposed now which would prevent somebody from sitting on both the ZBA and the planning board.
Yeah.
I don't know if it'll pass, but.
Why is that? It seems like that would be good.
It's like a
select
conflict
board.
though, because you're seeing. Right, you're
I think
seeing
it's-
like the special exception, you're making decisions on that. Right,
Right, well, I think it's if you were opposed, say, during the ZBA process,
Right.
it would be presumed that you could be
Opposed.
biased
during the site plan.
when it
review.
came to the next, or vice versa.
Yeah. There's a reason why
There is,
there's a conflict.
yeah.
Judicial.
All right, well, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn if there's,
So
So
moved.
moved.
They say it's usually George.
I'll second.
all right, Russ? I
Yes.
know-
yeah.
Yes,
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
okay, meeting adjourned. Thank you, everybody.